Conditions will be a little bit better. We're just about set to get underway with the men's 3,000 meters. Charles Chariot of Kenya is one of the favorites in this event, along with Sydney Marie, Mark Bailey, and Rory Curry. And Lynn had a chance to talk with Charles earlier in the day to find out exactly what he had planned for this year.
Okay, according to my plans is that this will be my third race. I ran in Jesse Owens, and then I went to Sao Paulo, ran 5,000, and I ran with Cindy Marie, and I heard that he's going to be here, which I hope is going to be one of my competitions, and I hope, and I'm looking forward to run good time in this race, so that will make me to run some, to be invited in some meets in Europe. So I'm looking forward to run a good time in 3,000.
That's Sydney Marie, the American record holder over 3,000 meters, the 1,500, and the 5,000 meters. He and Charles have certainly had some good races over the years. Tough conditions, that's the rabbit out setting the pace in these early stages. Now, well, I was just about to say that in these conditions, they're probably not likely to want a rabbit, in that they'd prefer tactical racing. However, Sydney appears to be moving right up close enough to maintain a fast pace.
James Austin is the man out in front. Sydney Marie from the United States trying to stay close to him. A total of 17 runners started this race. It'll be interesting to see how many are in contention at the conclusion.
He appears to be setting a fairly fast pace at this stage, probably in the low 60s, and by that I mean probably 63 to 64 seconds, which is a pace that would finish under 8 minutes for 3,000 meters, which is very fast given these conditions. Sydney Marie is stringing out the pack by going with the rabbit.
Sydney Marie is a very interesting story, Lynn. He could be world-class runner when he wants to be, and when he doesn't want to race, he just simply doesn't race.
It's true, he picks them, and when he's not feeling good, he doesn't worry about it. He usually gets one really super fast race in the European season every summer, and other races, he sort of uses them as training. It just depends on exactly how he's feeling. He doesn't worry so much about reputation. In this case, though, he seems to be setting a brisk pace. He's obviously here to run fast.
Sydney Marie is following the rabbit, James Austin. Number 593, I would imagine that he will be pulling off as very, very soon, as a matter of fact. Charles Chariot of Kenya started the race in last place. He has very quickly moved up on the rest of the pack, and he is now moved into third place behind Marie.
He's realizing there's no fooling around here. If he's going to make up any ground on Sydney, he better do it right now and get the race started right now. Now, the thing is, it looks as if Sydney is not responding to Charles' move. Now, that's interesting to me. I can't imagine he'd settle for second place this early on in the race.
Looking back at the rest of the pack, that is number 17, Chris Weber from Manitoba, who is currently in 4th position.
Charles Chariot, he was 6th in the 1984 Olympic 5,000 meters, and he was a semi-finalist in 1988. He has taken up the pace. He has made a decisive move here, moving right up with the rabbit. Far ahead now, 50 yards ahead. Well, 25 yards ahead of Sydney Marie. Sydney is not moving with him.
Looks like Charles Chariot of Kenya is running away from the field, trying to stay close to the rabbit, James Austin. You get an indication of just how far ahead of the pack he really is.
This is an aggressive race he's running, all by himself out front like that. Now, he came here with the notion of setting a fast time. He wants to be able to qualify for the Grand Prix circuit, and that takes place over in Europe this summer. He'll be leaving very shortly. He is after a fast time. They're moving along in 62, 63-second laps, and once again, that is well under 8 minutes. This is a world-class effort.
Sydney Marie still leading the pack. Chris Weber of Manitoba is also in the hunt. He is just in the process now of passing Marie. That is James Austin, the rabbit. He will be pulling off momentarily, I would imagine, unless he decides he wants to go for it. But that is Charles Chariot of Kenya, who is currently in 2nd spot and looks to be running away from the rest of this field.
What a run he is having, Charles Chariot from Kenya. In these conditions, now he trains in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where conditions are hot. Now this weather is tough for him.
Sidney Marie now starting to lose ground. He is now in the middle of the pack as James Austin continues to lead the way. Charles Chariot of Kenya is second alone. No one is near the man.
This is good running by the rabbit. He is doing his job. That's what he's set there to do, is to set the pace. He's looking over his shoulder because he's wondering, should I slow down and help Charles, or should I maintain a fast pace and hope that he'll be able to come up on my shoulder?
Looking back at the rest of the field, 794 is Jeff Cameron from Ontario. He is currently in third spot. Behind this man, Charles Chariot of Kenya.
You can see he's showing some wear and tear in the expression on his face. He's got a good rhythm going. The arms are pumping, the legs are floating. He's well ahead of the pack. You're very vulnerable out front like this. When the pack can take up the chase and close ground, it's almost difficult to figure on whether you're maintaining your original pace or whether the pack is in fact catching you.
Rain seems to have lightened up somewhat. The fans just showed their appreciation to Charles Chariot and his outstanding efforts, and Sidney Marie has moved back into the pack. He is trailing Henry Claassen, who is currently in fourth spot.
Sidney Marie, the American record holder at this distance, he's obviously decided it's not worth chasing a fast pace. He's content to sit there in the pack and perhaps settle for second place and just leave it to a sprint finish.
Charles Chariot of Kenya continuing to lead the rest of this field and appears to be in very, very comfortable position. That is Jeff Cameron of Ontario, currently in third spot. Sidney Marie is running side by side with Henry Claassen. Chris Reber, who was leading that pack for a while, seems to have fallen back off the pace. And now as we take a look at Charles Chariot of Kenya, do you detect a little fatigue there? He looks like he is starting to struggle a little bit.
Yes, and he can hear the crowd helping him as he comes by the home stretch. His arm cadence isn't nearly as quick as it was. Now, it's hard to say. He's got 3 laps remaining. That's still a lot of time. At this stage of the race, this is where the pace really takes its toll. He knows he's got to bear down and try to maintain, knowing full well that the chase has begun behind him. And that pack, that is a good fight for second.
The tall, lanky Chris Weber has now made his move. He is now moved into second place behind Chariot, and he looks like he's trying to reel him in. He's starting to leave the rest of the pack behind.
Chris Weber from Winnipeg, Manitoba, this is exciting for him. Now, he has just been carded this year. By that, I mean he's moved into availability for funding from Sport Canada. He's improved so much, and how exciting. He's catching the likes of Charles Chariot, an Olympian, Kenyan champion. He's passed him. What a surge of energy.
And it looks like Chris Weber is going to continue with that surge as he is widening the gap between himself and Charles Chariot. Rory Curry, number 11 from New Brunswick, has now moved into third spot as Chariot continues to struggle. And this is Chris Weber of Manitoba. Look at the distance he has made up in less than half a track.
His long, lanky stride, he is stretching it out. You can imagine how he feels right now. He is passing a world-class field of athletes. He's moving out front. Can he hold on to this lead?
Mark Bailey of Ontario has now moved into third place and is challenging Chariot for second. But can Chris Weber maintain, or is he going to tie up? Did he try and take off too soon? That is the question. Can he maintain the lead?
He's still got a lap remaining. Now, it's still a lap is over a minute of running, and he's putting his head down, bearing down into that wind and rain.
Mark Bailey of New Brunswick has fallen back into third spot, but look at Chris Weber go. He is turning it on. He's got one final turn before he comes into the home stretch. He is not going to fold. He is going to win this race.
What a tremendous run. He said he loves running in Vancouver, and he loves this crowd, and what a race for him.
Chris Weber of Manitoba coming across the finish line. Here he comes. What a great performance. Fist raised in the air in victory. Let's see who comes in second and third. It is going to be a very close one, but it's a pair of Ontario runners. Mark Bailey of Ontario and David Mather of Ontario finishing second and third behind Chris Weber of Manitoba. So it is a Canadian victory in the men's 3,000 meter. Chris Weber from Manitoba finishing at a time of 8:03.85. In second place was Mark Bailey, 8:09.31, and David Mather, 8:09.71. Obviously tired, but Chris Weber is standing by with Vic Lindell for some post-race comments.
Chris Weber, weren't a favorite in this race, but how do you feel about that win?
It's great, man. I love it. I don't know. It's great. It's great to do that.
Okay, well, what about the pacing? When you saw Charles take off like that, what were you thinking?
Well, I didn't want to go that fast at the beginning at all. I mean, that's way beyond my league at that point, so I just wanted to sort of take the second pack and see if we could just run a fast pace, so that's all I was trying to do.
Did it ever pass through your mind that Charles was maybe going too fast, or pass through your mind you might not catch him?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, when I heard the pace they were thinking about going before the race, I was thinking, well, they're gonna be way ahead of us. There's no hope at all. But it didn't turn out that way, so what can you do?
People going to have to look at you now in Canada in that particular event?
Well, we'll see, I guess. I mean, it's up to whatever people want to think of me. I mean, that's what they can do. I'll just try and keep running, and that's all I can do.
Congratulations. Good run. Outstanding crowd. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you, Vic. An outstanding race indeed for Chris Weber of Winnipeg, Manitoba. We'll be back with more from the Harry Jerome International Track Classic after this.